We have all heard that the only survivors of the nuclear war would be cockroaches. But what they did not tell you is that all of those mutant cockroaches that survive will be driving around in vehicles with one of these four motors. Welcome to Keeper of the Mountain. I'm Zach, your host. Our channel is closing in on 10,000 subscribers. If you like the content, don't forget to hit that like button, then subscribe and ring the bell. That way, you will be in the know when the next one comes out. You will also help us with the algorithm because we want to hit it. Doing that will boost the channel and improve the projects. And by all means, while you're at it, go to our channel and check out the playlists. No doubt you'll find something that is interesting to you. Now that the garage is usable, after removing the body that was just sitting on the frame, I pulled the car inside for inspection. The engine was completely locked up, and on close inspection, I saw that there was no spark plugs in the motor. Apparently, it had been sitting for several years exposed to the elements with no plugs in it. As a result, I pulled the engine and transmission out. While trying to remove the torque converter bolts, the engine just turned just a little bit. So I decided to pour some transmission fluid through the spark plug holes and into the cylinders, and also some down the intake manifold. Let it soak for about a week, and then after covering the spark plug holes with rags to contain the fluid, I began working on the crank. I turned it back and forth to free it up. It took a little bit. It worked. It came loose. After pulling the heads off, however, several of the bores were so pitted that I'm not even sure that it can be bored out and salvaged. Basically, the 302 is a boat anchor at this point. Now I need an engine. Once again, I turned to the original car for inspiration when it came to the SSK. They were extremely valuable, and each one was hand-built. And they've had many variations within that, about 32 cars, but they all shared the same type of engine. It was a 430 cubic inch inline six-cylinder, which sounds huge, but it only made like 100 to 150 horsepower, depending on exactly how they worked it up. If you engaged the supercharger, that you had for short bursts right around 200 horsepower. But if you left it engaged very long, well, large chunks of your motor would start chasing the Wright brothers across Kitty Hawk. So in order for me to get my hands on one of those, would take the GDP of a small country. So that was kind of out of the question. In fact, because of that, any Mercedes engine is at this point out of the question. So my next logical thought was perhaps the Jaguar 4.2 liter or the 256 twin overhead cam crossflow head inline six. I thought that might be a good choice. It has around 223 horsepower and 240 foot-pounds of torque, which is very respectable for a straight six. It's pretty common in Europe. In fact, it's so common, it's like the small block Chevy is here in the United States. It's their go-to engine, shall we say, for all their customs and whatever. They don't know what else to do with. They put that Jaguar 6 in it. And it can be adapted to almost any transmission you choose. You can do it with off-the-shelf parts. The problem is that as common as they are there, here in the West, they're a bit spendy. Also, I've never worked on one before, and I'm thinking domestic inline six would be better for me because it's what I'm familiar with, and I can get parts, and it's inexpensive. You know, it's just the odds are better for me. There are really only 4 different American inline six-cylinder engines that I'm willing to consider. The smallest one, it is the indestructible Dodge Slant 6, coming in at 225 cubic inches. 145 horsepower and 215 pounds of torque. Next is the Jeep Workhorse, and it came in several different sizes, but it was basically known as the 4.0 or the 244 cubic inch engine with 101 horsepower and 235 pounds of torque. A pretty good engine in its own right. Followed by that engine is the rock-solid GM 292 that has 147 horsepower and 262 foot-pounds of torque. Finally, the biggest one is the Ford 300 inline six-cylinder torque monster with right around 145 horsepower, like everyone else, and 265 pounds of torque. Now, we have all heard that the only survivors of the nuclear war would be cockroaches. But what they did not tell you is that all of those mutant cockroaches that survive will be driving around in vehicles with one of these four motors. My choice came down to two facts. One, that my existing drivetrain is Ford, and two, that I got a line on a rusted out Ford truck with a good running 300 inline six. So $350 later, I was the proud owner of a new to me Ford 300 inline six engine. For about $800 more, I can get a more suitable cam, a 4-barrel intake, and a split long tube set of headers. This will give me north of about 300 horsepower and almost 400 pounds of torque. Not bad for a car that will weigh in around 1,500 pounds dripping wet. So after getting this truck, my buddy Ray helped me to salvage the engine. So stay tuned for the next stage of this build where I will begin modifying the car.
All right, this is going to be a whole lot easier to pull this engine out. Got nothing in the way. Just lay everything off to the side and off we go. Gotta love it.
Please hit the like button and share this project. Subscribe if you haven't yet, as the more subscribers and views this series gets, the faster it will get done and driving. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time.